So if you saw the thumbnail of this video, you'll know this thing took me over 400 hours to make. And you might be wondering how we got to this point. Why would I want to make something that takes over 400 hours? The thing is, I got into crocheting around the time that one Harry Styles J.W. Anderson cardigan was popping off, and I don't think I ever got over the idea of making a cardigan comprised entirely of squares. I watched a lot of folks make that style of cardigan, and, you know, it stayed in my brain. What also stayed in my brain was the many times I heard people say they prefer knit over crochet for garments because crocheting tends to create a chunky, holey fabric. So that stuck in my head too. Like, yeah, that does seem like an issue. But what if I could subvert that issue? It felt like a challenge, you know, like what if I crocheted something solid that is only as thick as knitted fabric tends to be? So then we introduce mosaic crochet, specifically the Amacal by the pattern maker Tinna, and I have part of my solution in hand. Because the thing about mosaic crochet is it doesn't really create a holey fabric. It is pretty solid, though it is very thick. So next we fast forward to a time when I was looking at yarn in the store and I discovered the world of crochet thread, and I recognized it for what it was, the final piece to my puzzle. Crochet thread tends to be used for tatting and making doilies. When you crochet with it, it requires a 1.5mm hook, so pretty small. I know it's even smaller than embroidery floss tends to be. So that's all just to give you an idea of the scale I'm talking about and how it solves the issue of creating overly thick fabric. I decided that was the material I would use to create my dream cardigan. So here's this patchwork crocheted cocoon cardigan made with mosaic crochet drawn directly from Tinna's Amacal pattern with some of my own personal flair. I documented the process of making the cardigan, bringing you into the journey right as I finish up my 144th square after about 5 months of slow and steady work. So join me as I make this square. Hi, I thought while that footage played out, I would give you a little bit more of an in-depth explanation of this project, or at least explain all these motifs that I used. There are 36 unique ones, and I thought I would just tell you where all the inspiration from each of those came from, and any other kind of tidbits while we wait for that square to finish. This is based on the Amacal by Tinna. She's this designer on Ravelry, and she has a YouTube channel as well where she makes tutorials for all sorts of mosaic crochet stuff, but also just crochet in general. I only found her because of mosaic crochet. I just kept seeing recommendations on my YouTube, and I was really curious, and I'm glad that I delved into that curiosity because she just has such a cool pattern. The Amacal is really worth doing, and even if you don't do a full-fledged thing like I'm doing in this video here, in the past I've made like a pillow out of 2 squares of hers, or like a bag, or anything really. So it's just a really cool pattern. It looks really awesome. It's linked in the description. So anyway, 36 individual motifs, but only 4 of those came from her Amacal pattern. The rest of them I found through one way or another. So I'm going to break this down into 4 categories of where these motifs came from. So the first is just from the Amacal. So this is the Amasaga square. This is the Ama Maria square, the Amathora square, and this is her Amatina square. And if you're already aware of her pattern, you may know that I'm skipping one. I didn't do the Amalola, but it's like, I kind of did do it. Like, I made a set of all 5 of her things, and I made 4 of each. That was the first thing I did because it was the easiest thing to do, is just follow instructions. But at some point I was looking at it, and the thing is, most of these start off with, you cast on in a circle, and then you immediately go into your contrasting color. But the Amalola, it works kind of like, I was kind of imagining like, what if there was no contrasting color in the center? What if it was just the main color right from the start? And so I made one of those, and I liked the look of it at the time, and so I made up 3 others. So I completely undid the work of the first 4 that followed her pattern, because I was committed. I thought it looked good. At the very end of all this, making all these 36 motifs, I had them all laid out, and I just picked through, and there were 3 or 4 that just didn't really sit right with me, and so I remade those into something entirely different. And that that Amalola without the contrasting color. That was one of the ones I picked out because it just didn't look as good as I thought it would. So yeah, of her original 5, I've only got the 4 here. But I should mention a couple alterations I made. So for all of hers, you cast on, I think it's like a circle of 16, a little magic circle. But at some point I thought, well, what if you just cast on 8, but then change it immediately into a square? I just thought that would look nice, so I did that with a couple of hers. And another alteration I made is, I'll put a picture on the screen too, because this little corner here, it looks different. Normally, like in her pattern, it's a square and then a kind of like 2 lines kind of shadowing the square. Anyway, one time I was just looking at those shapes and I realized that if I twisted things around a little bit, it would look kind of like a fish. So I did that. I like the way it looks. And when 4 corners of this meet, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can hold this. It just looks like 4 fish are swimming toward each other, which is cute. So yeah, that's the reason for that alteration. So there we go. 4 from Tinna. Now the next set, it's a big one. It is 18. Just to explain, like, I knew I was going to be making 144 of these, and I didn't want to be limited to making only the 5 same motifs again and again. I thought I would get bored of that. So that's why I wanted to make a whole bunch more. And I did the math and it just seemed like 36 was the way to go. So it just meant I needed to make 32 extra motifs. The thing is, I wanted to stay in line with her aesthetic, because I think that she made such a cool pattern and I didn't want to deviate from just how cool it looked. And I wanted it to look like it was her style, you know, like what she had created. So the thing is, she is a pattern maker. Like, she has a bunch of patterns up on Ravelry. So there's this one called Azul that's up, and it's, I think it's like $10.50 American dollars. So I bought that, and I looked through all the motifs that there were, and like, there was a lot of inspiration to be had. You know, I made 18 motifs out of the however many it was that she made for her pattern. The thing that's kind of tricky about it though is like for the first 4 that I showed you, I'm also able to link a YouTube tutorial because she explains how to do everything step by step, and it's super informative and there's no detail lost. But with these, I mean with all of these and the other 2 categories I haven't gotten to, it's kind of weird because like there's not a tutorial for them. I looked at her pattern for the motifs but not for the instructions, because I had to figure out how to make them work in the round, because the Azul pattern is, it's just worked across. So I had to like use my brain. I had to really like jump into the designs and really think about how mosaic crochet works. Without further ado, I'm going to show you these motifs and also put up a picture of what is just publicly available to be seen on Ravelry. So even though I bought the pattern, I'm not going to show you the pattern. You need to buy it yourself. So like the project pictures are just available for you to see on Ravelry. So I will put little screen caps of them on here. Alright, so this one's first, and what's tricky is that I was constrained to like 6 rows in alternating colors to make each of these. So you'll see that it doesn't look perfectly like the one that I'm referencing because I couldn't possibly do that. There's not enough room. There's no way in these 6 rows for me to do anything that could look like that perfectly. Like some of them are very much one-to-one, but this is one that is not. You see that it's just kind of hard to work with that constraint. So the next is this one. You can definitely see the inspiration there. And this one is very similar to it, but just different enough for it to count. Here's this one, pretty one-to-one. And then this one, it's kind of like a deviation of this one. It's just, you know, inverted and, you know, the spikes coming out are a little bit different. This one is also kind of a deviation of this one. It's just different enough for me to feel like it's worth it. And same goes for this one. Pretty darn similar, but different enough. In one of the pictures, it's visible in just like a tiny corner. So this is where I got that motif from. This one was nice. It's pretty much one-to-one. It's a little simplified, obviously. There's not the extra lines here. I tried out one of them and it looked too busy, so I had to simplify it. This is also pretty one-to-one. I think the colors are just inverted, but still cool. Next, I was looking at this one motif and I got these two squares out of it. It's just, you know, I'm limited by the space of 6 rows, you know, so I had to separate out these motifs. This one has the border of this motif over here, and I was able to squeeze this element out of that motif. And honestly, for a minute I was worried that these shapes here would look too much like the fish in the corners, but it looks different enough. Like when I lay them all out, you can't mistake them for each other. And that's all I need. So it's been a while, so I can't know for sure, but I think this one is meant to mimic this motif here. It doesn't look all that similar though. What it does look similar to is this one from hers. The only thing this one is missing is the black lines going across. So irritating when I saw that, but it's like, it looks different enough, but I feel like this is the one I got closest to just like ripping them all back again. Like, new design, we can't have it so close to this one. But whatever, like I'm saying, it's different enough, who cares? I mean, I care, but even I'm the one who cares the most and I don't even care enough, so. Next, I used the border of this motif. I really like this one. Here we go, this is the one I'm working on in the footage down there. And this one is, you know, pretty darn similar, but you can see how the motifs are just a little bit different. Boom! So there we go. Her oswald pattern was such a useful resource. Alright, next category. This is when I ran out of inspiration from Tinna. The thing is, I still wanted to, like I said, keep in line with her aesthetic, and she's Icelandic, so I thought I might have some luck by Googling Icelandic motif. I thought I would find some images that I could adapt into a crocheted motif, and I did. So these ones, I'm just gonna preface, like, they don't look very much like the original reference, so just bear with me. They still look cool, in my opinion. Let's get into this. This is what I made from reference online, and this is what I was inspired by, and you'll see that it doesn't really look the same. But can you say that it doesn't look cool? I think this is one of my favorites. Definitely top 3. See, this one, you can see the inspiration. And I'm not 100% sure anymore because it's been months since I did these, but I think this one is also meant to be inspired by the same reference. Like, you can kind of see, right? Just the dashes here, dashes there. The next one is also in my top 3. This one looks so fun, and it looks like I haven't put up the reference yet because it's ridiculous. I kept seeing this motif that is probably just used on like ribbons or like flat, across a flat object. Just a zigzag shape. But what happens when you do zigzag in the round? It just makes this really cool kind of like X shape. So yeah, this looks like an original design, but I will admit freely that no, it was just me doing zigzags. That's all there is to it. This one is so funny to me because it doesn't look like the reference. But like, you can get, it's like this little section of it does look like what she's got going on, but why is it separated like this? I don't know. Maybe I just couldn't figure out how, I don't know. But another thing is, it's like you'll see that in her design there's this kind of like negative space in there, and so I did incorporate that here. There's negative space in this kind of petal situation, but of course when you're back far away from it, you know, you're not deliberately like splaying it out. it doesn't look like there's much negative space, and if it does, it looks like it's an accident. I don't know. So that's what that's what the inspiration was, and it just looks nothing like it. This one, it was really nice. This is pretty one-to-one. And I believe, like, maybe editing Elena will find a different inspiration photo for this next one, but I believe that this is just from the same reference. I just inverted it, kind of. I don't know. But yeah, this is this one closer. And last, I can't remember exactly what image I was looking at for this, but in looking up the reference images for this segment, I feel like I get what I was doing. It's like, look at the gray spaces, and it's like 3 bars. And you can see that kind of motif even in this little segment of that image. So I think that's what I was going for. Okay, so those are the ones I got from looking online. Cool. Okay, the final category are ones that came straight from my own head. It was kind of hard to just think of them. I was so in there, like, looking at all these Icelandic motifs, and I keep saying, I didn't want to deviate from that. I wanted it all to look seamless and, you know, like it's all the same project. So I was worried if I deviated that I would regret it. So whatever. These ones, they flow. So this first one here is a direct result of this one, because like I was saying, this one looks like it's an X, and I just thought, what if you extend the black section out a little bit and then like make little diamonds here? I just thought it would look really cool. So yeah, that's one of my first ones. And then following that train of thought, I was like, oh, well, what if you extend it even further and just outline it in white? Then it will look cool too. So we got that going on. And the next one, this is the last top 3 favorite one. Triangles! I love triangles. So there we go with that. I just thought it would look cool with a border of all boxes, all alternating colors. It's simple. And the next one is, it's kind of funny because it's like, with mosaic crochet, you're constantly double crocheting down into a previous row and covering up the other color, and I don't know, I just thought it would be nice to do one that was rows of only single crochet. I just thought it would be very calming. So yeah, that's that one. Here's the final one. Okay, so I originally had a motif that it was just like boxes. Like there was a main box in the center, and then I wanted boxes to be on the edges. The thing is, that looked way too similar to this one. And it also looked too similar to this motif. You know, so you can see the idea is like, instead of 2 small boxes, it would just be 1 larger box at each corner. So I did make a set of 4 of those, and then I just decided it wasn't working, it was way too similar, and it looked wrong somehow. So that was one of the ones I picked out. But I think that it was toward the end of my whole process of making all these, and I was just getting kind of tired of constantly ripping back and redoing things. So I was like, is there a way for me to preserve even part of what was originally there? And I realized if I just, I ripped back a couple rows, and then I made this into a little heart shape. So instead of a box, we get a heart. Lovely solution. It meant I didn't have to start fresh every single time for this set of 4. So there we go. That was the last one. Let's just jump back into the other footage. And there we have it, 98 minutes to complete 1 square. And I'm gonna add 10 minutes to that because even though weaving in these particular ends isn't gonna take me very long, usually because of the amount of times I cut my yarn, I know it consistently took 10 minutes to weave in ends throughout this process. So the total is actually 108 minutes for each square. So 108 times those 144 squares equals 15,552 minutes. Divide that by 60 and we get just about 259 hours to complete all of these squares. So next I'm going to get my household together and they will help me arrange all of them in the perfect configuration. Alright, so now it's time to start seaming everything together. Nope, not time yet. Nope. You thought, I thought, we all thought. No, something went wrong with the math, and I'm here to explain. This whole time I've been using the measurements of this cardigan. I made this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I love it, and I wanted another one. So this thing measures 48 square inches, and that's what I was basing all the measurements off of. Like, it needs to match this. And the thing is, I actually started this project like 2 years ago. I made 5 squares, and then I stopped for like a year and a half. So I finally picked it up again and just did the math from there. I was like, okay, it needs to measure 48 square inches. Each of these squares, as I measured them at the time, they were 4 inches wide. So it was perfect. I just was like, math, that works. 48 square inches divided by 4. I just need to make it 12 by 12 squares. What I didn't realize until recently is the squares that I was basing those measurements off of, the original set of 5 that I made 2 years ago, I didn't take into account that my tension would have changed, that I would just start crocheting a little tighter. So here's one of the original ones, and I'm going to lay on top of it one of the new ones. You can see that it's just, it's a little bigger. So that's an issue, and I was kind of in denial toward the end of the project because, you know, I was making these newer ones and I thought, it's really not, it's not the same size, but, you know, these are, I hadn't washed or blocked them. And I've seen so many people transform their work with blocking. It's just, I think there's a limit to what blocking can manage. And so when I completed all the 144 squares and I washed them and blocked them and tried stretching them out and like ironing them flat, like trying so hard, I could not make it measure 4 square inches. It was more like 3.5 inches, even like 3.25 inches, just depending on which motif I had used in the center. So that was kind of disappointing. As a side note, it's funny because of the original set of 5 that I had made, I mentioned in the other motif explanation section that like one of them I didn't keep. I remade it and I didn't like the change I had made, and then I wasn't willing to make it another 4 times. And then of those remaining 4, 2 of them I decided to remake to have a square in the very, very teeny tiny center rather than starting with a circle. So that means that there were only 2 remaining of those original 5 that are this incorrect size now, that they don't match with the rest of the new ones. So I'm actually in the process of remaking them. I'm ripping it back, starting new. So I just have to remake 2 to make them the same tension as the rest of them. Not a big deal, but what is a big deal is, you know, I want the new one to measure 48 square inches. And so I did the math and it's like, okay, that would mean it's gonna be 14 by 14 squares. So I was like, ooh, 56 new squares. Not only that, but 13 new motifs that I have to think of. So I'll admit that I sat on that knowledge for a while. Like, am I gonna do this? I know I will. I want it to measure what I want it to measure. But I wanted to be really sure. And let me show you some mock-ups I made of, you know, if I had kept it, I think at the time it was like 41 square inches. I made a little mock-up of just what that looks like with a spare sheet I had handy. So this is what it would look like if I kept it a 41 square inch cardigan. You see that like there's not much room for it to cover the front of my body, which I really like in the green one that I have. You might be able to see like I can't even really like, oh, something snapped because like it doesn't account for my shoulders. So 41 by 41 inches is not gonna cut it. Like, this is a look and I think it's cute in a way. It's just not what I want. But then I was thinking about something much more comfortable. So like there's plenty of room for my shoulders, there's plenty of room for my wingspan, but what I don't really need is this length. It doesn't even come into the camera. Like, I don't need it to be that long. I think it's really nice. I wouldn't change this one at all, but like if I'm trying to not spend another 2 months making more squares, I think that I can cut down on the length. So I made another mock-up. This one is 48 inches across, but 41 inches in length. Okay, so here we go. This has the wingspan I'm looking for. It has all the shoulder space I want. I like this. So what this means for me is I don't have to make it 14 by 14 squares. It can be 12 by 14 squares, which means instead of making 56 new squares, I only have to make 24 new ones. So that might still seem like a lot, but it's like, remember, like, I sat on this knowledge for a while, this understanding that I would have to make 56 new squares and spend another 2 months or so on this. Like, just making 24, that's nothing, and it would only take me a month, so no problem there. Another thing is, you know, with making 56 extra squares, that divided by 4 is 13 new motifs, because I didn't want to repeat any of them because it wouldn't be evenly divisible. I am who I am. But with having only 24 squares to make, 24 divided by 4 is only 6 new motifs. Anyway, I'm gonna zoom through, complete these next 6 sets, and I'll see you for another, like, arranging all the squares into the best configuration, this time with the correct measurements. Just rough it all.
It makes it look more,
yeah,
crazy.
that would be really hard to mix
Vortex.
Oh my,
yeah, vortex.
Sorry, I'm just being Momo.
So now it's time to start seaming everything together. I'm going to be following this tutorial by Mima Makes. I'm going to link it in the description. It's how to join granny squares with an invisible seam mattress / ladder stitch tutorial. I'm not going to explain how to do it. She has already demonstrated it with vibrant colors. If I were to show you my stuff, it would just be black on black, which is not very easy to look at. So that's that on that. I went with this method because it seems like every other method it leaves a really bulky seam, or it'll have this effect where it kind of like it makes each square kind of puff out around the seams. Like, I see that on other people's patchwork cardigans, and I think for some of them it's a deliberate choice. For others it's like that was just the joining method they saw first, and it's really easy because it's just slip stitches. But I've spent about 5 months on this already, and it's gonna take at least 2 more months, I think, to finish the rest of this. So I don't I want it to look really flat and just well joined. So yeah, I think that seaming everything together is gonna take me about a month. I really hope it won't, but I'm trying to be realistic. And the thing is, even though these squares are tiny, it's still 33 stitches just along one side. So it's gonna take a while, and at least for the first strip I do, I'm gonna use a timer just to see how long it's taking, just so I can calculate how much longer it will take, because maybe a month is too big of an estimate, and who knows, maybe it's too small, because this is a kind of time-consuming seaming method. So without further ado, so I wanted to jump in real quick to show you what I got done in 1 hour. 1 hour of joining these. I was keeping a careful time of it, and I'm just gonna keep doing that hour by hour because I can't sit through however long it'll take to do 12 of these in a row. But I did want to show you this join. I haven't tightened it yet, so just look at how nice and lovely it gets.
Oh wow, perfect.
Oops. There we go. So now we got 3. Well, almost 3. I couldn't get a whole extra inch of it because it's a lengthy process. I'm using this method and it looks beautiful, but it just takes eons. But there we go so far. Alright, so here we go. It took 3 hours and 22 minutes. Let me show you. I don't know how well this method will work, because they're not joined along the sides, you know, they're only joined straight up and down. But here we go. Just joining along the one straight edge, 3 hours and 16 minutes, no, 3 hours and 22 minutes and 16 seconds worth of work. Ugh. So this now is joined, all the, and folded in half. All the seams are seamed, all the squares are perfectly joined. Doesn't it look super cool? I also safety pinned together where the arm sides will join and make armholes. So this is super cool. This is a fun point to get to because now it seems like an end is in sight. And look how the mathed out, you know? I only elongated it on the sides, but it's just as long as I want it to be up and down. So, perfect. I just wanted to drop in and tell you how long this all took me. So yeah, I'm gonna be blatantly reading off of my computer screen over here just to get the accurate information. So the first way I joined these was joining 12 squares, like 12 row squares. So that would have to be done 13 times, and then joining the longer sides, the 14 square sides, that only had to be done 11 times. So the first time I joined a short side together, it took me 3 hours and 22 minutes. And I accepted that number as what it was because I knew I was going to improve over time. And I was right, because the final short row took me 2 hours and 3.5 minutes. Lovely. The thing is, when I was doing it, it's, you know, there's a learning curve. So the first 4 rows that I worked up, I was only using 1 strand of yarn because I thought that was good enough. It's a pretty sturdy, you know, cotton thread. I thought it would hold up, but it snapped a couple of times in the 4th row, and I realized I should be using 2 strands of it. So I did. I double stranded it for the rest of the seaming together of the things, but it meant that I had to go back to those first 4 rows just to redo all of that because I didn't want that to be one spot where it remained single stranded. I just knew it would be a weak point. Anyway, so let's just break this down into minutes. Seaming together the first row took 202 minutes. The final row took 123.5 minutes, so those numbers added together is 325.5. Divide that by 2 to get the average, and that is 162.75 times 17 would have been 13, but we add that extra 4. So that number is then 2,766.75 minutes, and divide that by 60, we get just about 46 hours. So next, I did the longer sides. So joining the 14 squares, only having to do that 11 times, and not having to do it extra times because I already knew to do it double-stranded, so it saved time there. Yeah, for the long sides, the first seaming of it all took me 3 hours and 35 minutes. Kind of a gut punch after, you know, only taking 2-ish hours for that final one before, but you know, it was a little bit different. You have to position your hand a little differently. It's a little more awkward because, you know, every single time you get to a previous join, you have to maneuver around it, and it's just kind of vexing. Anyway, so I'm fine. Took 3 hours, 35 minutes, whatever. But the final one took 2 hours even. So 215 minutes plus 180 is 395 minutes, divided by 2 is 197.5 minutes, times the 11 rows, and that is 2,172.5 minutes. Divide that by 60 and we get 36-ish hours. So I need a pillow to scream into. So 46-ish hours plus 36-ish hours equals 82 hours to seam all of this together. When I add everything up at the end though, I'm gonna credit this aspect for taking 90 hours. I'm just gonna round up to a nice 90 because there are some things that I never kept track of, like weaving in ends. I know that took me 2 evenings, like 2 entirely devoted evenings, so that's at least 8 hours. I might be skimping by saying 90 hours, because then there was this whole other step I took that, oh my gosh, it really messed up my thumb and pointer fingers, because it's like once I joined everything, I tried to, like, every single time I joined a square, I would then kind of like stretch this area just to make sure that I wasn't like cinching it, you know? I wanted it to be relaxed. The joining method I used has some wiggle room, like it will let you cinch it, and as much as I was stretching it during the whole process, at the very end I felt like the drape was off. It was still very cinched, and every square it just had like, it was gathered and it just didn't work. I thought that washing it and then ironing it might help a little bit. Maybe it helped, but I had to go through at the very end and just row by row just stretch out, and like it took, I think 2 hours is a fair amount to say. Anyway, so 82 hours of seaming together, but really like 92 hours of work. Oh, and I don't think I even explained these props next to me. This is some lining fabric, just some black cotton I got at the store. And the iron, because you should always iron stuff before you get into it. And so the purpose of this is twofold. It's just that, you know, the right side of the fabric is super cool. I think the wrong side of the fabric is also very cool, but it's not something I want to see the rest of my life. So just for aesthetics, I'm covering it up. But I also think functionally, it will just make this have a longer life. So I'm just going to take whatever steps I think are necessary to make this a lifelong garment. I think this is fine. Alright, so there's some seam allowance on this side, so I'll leave that much, so that way I can feel really comfortable about folding it over double. Scratching with your hardwood. Take creative liberties, I'm fine with it.
There you have it.
Thank you. Alright, so I'm sewing in the lining now, just little mid-sewing check-in. So I started by just basting down the fabric onto the crocheted bit, and that surprisingly took 3 hours. I'm being a lot more diligent about keeping time for this portion. But yeah, 3 hours, because it kept on stretching in a weird way. I felt like I was being pretty careful with it, not stretching it, but then I would look at it and be like, like super stretched out. I was like, why is this happening? It's like, I cut this fabric to match up with this. I shouldn't be having this issue. Anyway, so yeah, 3 hours just basting it down really carefully, and this is gonna make the sewing it down process a lot easier, I think. But yeah, what else? This sewing process is gonna be kind of interesting because like I still need to crochet the border that goes, you know, on the front. It's like, because mosaic crochet is always through the back loops, and so I need to sew this lining on, but make sure that it does not interfere with the back loop of any of these here. So this part right here is the back loop. But there's a part, oh my gosh, see, I only have one hand to hold the camera. Okay, so what I have underneath my needle right now, I have 2 loops. The top one there is the back loop, and that one below is the one that's just below. And that is what I'm going to sew the lining onto. That way I won't interfere with the back loop at all, and it'll just be perfect. I just don't want my...
I need to grab my glasses. Hello, come with me. There's Mom going to get her glasses.
Yeah, get critical. Tell me if I look beautiful enough.
Doesn't belong. I mean, yoga warrior, you'd probably rather have a just a nice loose penny. Oh, how cute. You're the one over there.
Well, this is fine. I'm fine with this being here.
Okay. I was just going to like turn it a little to see the baby.
I don't need a baby. If you put me as a baby, I'll crop it out.
See, I just barely, like that finger, and it's like,
So close to being done. So close. I think one more for safety. Tie a little knot. And then just send it through back where it came from so that I won't be cutting it right next to the knot. Yeah, I managed to get that in one thread. Ta-da! Alright, so that's that for that, but don't stop it yet. So now it's all attached. It's all so perfectly attached, and I can remove the white thread that I used as basting. Oh, and I should mention 5 minutes. That's how it only took 5 minutes. No, add that to 6 hours and 8 minutes. So 6 hours and 13 minutes. Not so far beyond 5 hours.
yeah.
And 5 hours was my lowest estimate, so I'm happy with that. Alright, so if you can get in close so I can show you how satisfying the basting is. So focus on this section. Oops. I might just snap this thread.
Ooh.
And don't worry about waste, guys. I always use white thread for basting, so I just wrap it back up when I'm done with it.
Nice.
Waste not, want not. And it's all still perfectly attached with all those neat little stitches. Oop, ta-da! And from this side.
Oh, there's a long handle.
The black thread must have caught things a little bit. Hi, so a new angle. Now that the lining is all attached to this cardigan, I'm gonna seam up the sides of the arms. So I thought I would just try to document a little bit of that. Wish me luck. So I'm really looking forward to how short this is compared to joining like all 12 squares or all 14 of a different row. It's like I just have to join 4 squares to this other side and also one on the opposite sleeve. And it'll leave this size opening for my arm, which I've measured out before, and it is perfectly comfortable for me. And the thing that's funny is, like, in all the footage you see of me actually working on my stuff, I never show this contraption. It's a little lamp that you can put around your neck and just like aim it at your work. I've been using it constantly, and I hope that it'll make my job easier today, even though I'm at a bit of a different angle than I'm used to. at it again. So I finished one side already. I didn't record that because I started talking to my friend on video chat, so I needed my phone back. But I'm back to record the last bit of this square, and that'll be the very last bit of the seaming, and then I'll be done. I can put this needle away. But yeah, that first arm, just matching 4 squares together, took me an hour because I was video chatting at the time. And it's funny because it's definitely not going to take that long for this one. So I'll tell you the final number of minutes at the end here. So yeah, first one took an hour. This took 35 minutes. So I guess that's just what happens when you're driven to distraction when talking to your friends. All right, next will come the explanation of the border that will be put on the sleeves and the body. I'm here to explain the border, but I'm also here to explain some missing elements that some of you, if you were really devoted, were probably wondering about. Those extra 6 motifs I made, I never explained where they came from. I'm here to do that now. The first one I made came from my own heart and soul. I liked that triangle one I made so much that I wanted to make another one with triangles. And here she is. But what's extra fun about this is it's more like it's a square, it's a square, and it's a square. It's just 3 tilted squares. It was still fun. The next one I made drew upon Icelandic motifs again, something I googled. There's this motif I kept seeing of arrows, and I thought it would be nice to have those here. The next one is because I have tried to be so diligent about showing the reference of anything that I drew inspiration from, just to make it really clear, like, how much of it can be credited to the image itself, and like how much I had to bend around to make it work in crochet. So there's this one that I really think I must have seen it on a ribbon or, you know, a long straight repeated pattern. It was just like slashes, and it looked really cool, and I thought it would also look cool done in the round. The thing is, I just can't find the reference. And like, I'm not even going to say like, oh, editing Elena. No. I'm editing Elena right now and I haven't found it. I've been scouring the internet and it's just nowhere to be found. I'm just not Googling the right things to find it again, or I don't know. So yeah, if anyone is really bothered by the fact that this is not being shown, then like look for it yourself. And if you find something that looks like this, send me a link so I can at least put it in the description of this video. No one cares. I'm the only one who cares about this. Okay, so the next category is just a little offshoot of that previous one. It's still stuff that I Googled for, but honestly, I just ran out of inspiration in Icelandic motifs. No, there was actually one more motif that I was really thinking of doing, but the thing is, like, I'm not Icelandic. Tinna is Icelandic, and I wanted the pattern to fit in with what she had started, but I'm not Icelandic. I'm Asian. I'm Chinese, so I thought, wouldn't it be nice to do something that means a little something to me? I was still kind of wary about like deviating from the aesthetic that she had started and that I feel like I was able to carry on for a while. So I was worried that it would be disruptive to the pattern, but I think it looked cool. I really, really liked this one because you cast on in a circle, you make it a square immediately, and then you transform it into a circle again. I just thought it was really fun. The next one is in the same way that that other one was, because I cannot figure out what I googled to discover this thing. So, sorry, there's a plane going overhead. So this is another one. I'll show you, and if you can discover what it was I googled and provide me with a link, I will be grateful, but this is what we got. They look cool. So here's the last one. It looks really cool in like a long straight line, like ribbon format, but I thought it would also look really cool in the round. The thing is, this is also, spoiler alert, the inspiration for my border. This is going to go on both sleeves and on the body, but I've already done the one sleeve so far just to see if it would work, and it does work. So I couldn't figure out how to make it for a while. Like, I was starting and stopping and it was just like I couldn't figure it out, but I tried to plug the design into Stitch Fiddle and that got me closer. So yeah, this is the thing. Oh, and did I mention it's reversible? I have never done reversible mosaic crochet before. I don't believe it's something that Tinna has ever explained in her videos, and if she never talked about it, I wouldn't care about it. If Tinna doesn't care about reversible mosaic crochet, why should I? So yeah, I had to Google around to make it so that both the right side and the wrong side would look cool, because, you know, while I was content to put a fabric lining on to cover up the wrong side of these squares, it felt like such a hassle to do that with just like an inch width of new crochet. So I was like, let me just make it look good on both sides. So yeah, reversible mosaic crochet, very nice. So yeah, the next footage you see, I think, will be making the border, and there will be like a timer in the corner, and here we go. Hey, pardon the difference between camera Elena's voice and voiceover Elena's voice, but now that I'm finishing up this cardigan, I really ought to talk about the cardigan pattern itself, because I've talked a lot about Tinna and all her patterns, and I've talked about what I developed of my own, but I haven't really talked about the whole structure of the cardigan, and that is something that I followed a tutorial for years ago when I was making my green one, and I'm going to put a link in the description. This thing is a cocoon cardigan, and it is basically just a granny square that you make to the biggest dimensions you want to make it all warm and big and comfortable for you. I do have some things to preface about the tutorial I'm linking though, because, you know, I watched it when I was first learning, and I made one recently for a friend maybe a year ago. So it's a tutorial that I like, but I also recognize the flaws in it. So I just wanted to warn anyone just in case. If you see the shape of what I'm making and you want to make one of your own using the actual granny stitch as the pattern goes, I just want to say there's some flaws in the way the pattern is presented that might make it hard for a beginner. But I'll also say that I was a beginner when I made it, and I just kind of figured it out, so I have high hopes for anyone who wants to follow it. Now, while I'm on the subject of designers, I think this is another opportunity for me to wax poetic about Tinna, because I haven't enough already. So I think her videos for the Amical were maybe like the third or fourth tutorial I'd ever followed for crochet, so I was still learning some things, and I definitely didn't know how to identify a stitch, like the anatomy of a stitch. I didn't understand certain things about it. And so I want to say, as a beginner, you learn so much from watching Tinna's videos, because you have to learn so much. You have to be able to distinguish between the front loop and the back loop, and then to be able to seek out, like, okay, you double crochet down into the front loop left behind that's just below the next stitch. Like, you have to figure out how to see those stitches, or even to count to double check that you've identified the correct stitch, and that's not always intuitive. I know I really struggled with it, like, I feel like it's a little bit to the side, I don't know if this is the right one, you know. So you will learn how to look at stitches and identify the anatomy of them, and I think it's so cool. Like, where I can say that, like, with knitting, I'm not super proficient yet. I can't really identify all the legs of a stitch, and, like, to undo certain bits of the work, it's like, I'm lost. I don't know how to fix it. But I can't really say the same about crochet. So because of these tutorials, I just know my crochet stitches a lot better than I would a knitting stitch. And that obviously wasn't true when I first started, because you don't know bunk when you first start out. So yeah, Tinna's videos are a super good educational resource, and she really spares no detail. The first video of the Amical series, where she talks about the Amasaga square and explains how to make first the mini motif, the medium-sized border, and the large-sized border, I think that video is like 3 hours long, because she walks you through it step by step so carefully, and she explains things really thoroughly. And if she feels like something wasn't very clear the first time around, she'll go through it a second and even a third time until it just makes sense. And, you know, obviously you can always rewind the video and go back and see, but it's like she's also careful about phrasing things in different ways so that you can really understand it. So all that to say, I cannot recommend her tutorials enough. Like, everyone needs to go and watch her videos and buy her patterns and support her, because she deserves it. Alright, now prepare yourself for another jarring transition from voiceover Elena to camera Elena. So, almost finished. I just have one like centimeter left. So I just wanted to catch this momentous moment on camera. Yeah, that's good and visible.
Oh, I see that we're coming to a connecting part. Oh my gosh.
Oops.
That was kind of dramatic. The scissors come really close.
And I just want to get this last bit here, go under these, and then under this loop. Shoop. Ta-da!
Wow.
Boom! So there we have it, a completed cardigan. And it only took about, what, 7.5 months? It must be nice for those at home who saw the end product at the beginning of this video, because you got that instant gratification, and the journey only took, what, an hour? I haven't finished editing this video yet, so that's my best guess. But anyway, I really enjoyed this project. Using what I learned, I think I would like to make another in the future, but this time using reversible mosaic crochet from the start. At least I'll start with like a bag or something small just to get a taste of it. In any case, thanks for joining me. Take this as your sign to make your own 400+ hour project that will span the majority of a year. And now to dispose of all the hollowed out rolls of cotton thread I used up.